Hi guys, and welcome to Trailblazers for today, Sunday the 28th of June. We're thinking about a passage from 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verses 1 to 9. So Paul's second letter to Timothy is, as we know, a letter, although it probably was a bit more like this. In fact, I'm not really sure exactly what it would have looked like, but we do know exactly what it said because we still have it in the Bible. So Paul was writing this second letter to Timothy to kind of encourage him in his ministry and to give him some instructions to help him, because teaching the Bible to people and leading a church can be really hard work. Paul knew this because he'd ended up in prison for teaching people about Jesus, and he wanted to kind of warn Timothy that this could happen to him too, and to give him some help to keep going when things got really hard. So what did Paul say? Well, so far these are the things Paul has said to Timothy in the letter. He said, fan your gift into flame. Don't let it go cold, but keep teaching the word. And be ready to suffer for Jesus just like I am. Don't be ashamed. And guard and pass on the truth. God will help you to do it. What about our passage today? Well, in chapter 3, verses 1 to 9, Paul tells Timothy to take a look at the world around him. And this is what he says. Paul says, remember this, there will be many troubles in the last days. In those times, people will love only themselves and money. They will brag and be proud. They will say evil against others. They will not obey their parents. People will not be thankful or be the kind of people God wants. They will not have love for others. They will refuse to forgive others and will speak bad things. They will not control themselves. They will be cruel and hate what is good. In the last days, people will turn against their friends. They will do foolish things without thinking. They will be conceited and proud. They will love pleasure, but they will not love God. Well, I don't really know how you feel about that list. Maybe sad, maybe shocked, maybe upset, maybe confused or even angry. But that's the world that we live in today, isn't it? And actually, it's not just other people out there. We don't just need to look at the world, we need to look at our own hearts really carefully, because actually our hearts are sinful too. We love ourselves more than we love God sometimes. But in chapter 1 verse 7, Paul said to Timothy, the Spirit God gave us gives us power, love, and self-control. So Paul wants Timothy to be different to the world. He wants him to be someone who has love and self-control through the power of God's Holy Spirit. Now, being different to the world will involve suffering like Paul did. Timothy needs to be ready for that. He needs to love God more than he loves himself. So this is teaching us, don't be a lover of self and sin, and don't be ashamed of the gospel message. That's what Paul wants to say to Timothy. He's saying, instead, do love God and the gospel message and stay away from worldliness and sin. But Paul doesn't just say, look at the world. Actually, Paul's telling Timothy to look carefully at the church too. Because he said, some of these people will continue to act as if they serve God, but they will not really serve God. Stay away from those people. What Paul's warning Timothy here is that actually some of those people will be people inside the church. They might even be our church leaders. He warns Timothy that just as Jannes and Jambres were against Moses, these people are against the truth. They're people whose thinking has been confused. They have failed in trying to follow the faith. Imagine someone needed heart surgery a heart transplant. But the doctor just told them to take some medicine instead that wouldn't really help them. That's kind of what this is like. He says there'll be some Bible teachers out there who don't give the right advice. They don't say that people need God to give them heart surgery. Instead, they just tell them the easier thing, and they give them bad medicine, which won't really help them. And Paul wants to warn Timothy against those false teachers. He says they don't really love God, they love themselves and are ashamed of the gospel. But we don't need to be worried, because Paul says they will not be successful in what they do. Everyone will see that they are foolish. This is what happened to Jannes and Jambres. So let's summarize what God is teaching us through this passage. There's two things really. He's telling us, don't be a lover of self and sin, and don't be ashamed of the gospel message. Instead, do love God and the gospel message, and stay away from worldliness and sin. And the second thing he's saying to us is about teachers in the church. He's saying stay away from people who seem to serve God but don't really love him or teach the truth. Instead, listen to leaders who love God, teach the truth, and are willing to suffer for it. And that's what 2 Timothy chapter 3, 1-9 is all about.